Hi everyone, Hugo here, one of the co-hosts of the show. What you're about to watch is a highlight from one of our most recent episodes. To get access to the full version, receive 2 exclusive episodes a month, get every episode 1 week early, and help us stay as independent as possible, support us on Patreon through the link below. Thank you. Now enjoy the show.
Everyone and their mother's eyes are on Taiwan. So let's pick your brains as the definition of military layman that we all are. And I apologize in advance. Some of these questions might sound a little bit cliche to you, but to us, and I'm pretty sure to our audience, which is not as informed, it could be pretty enlightening. So I have these 3 points that I want to touch on when it
Don't
comes
let
to.
this man fool you. He has a militia jacket and a gun right underneath that.
No,
Don't let him
no,
fucking fool you.
no,
And it's
trust.
sorry. Go
It's
ahead.
different in the civil environments and outside. Places I grew up on were a different type of. I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah.
Okay, so first kind of point. On the topic of Taiwan, right? How can China and the US engage in conflict over the island when they're both nuclear powers?
Well, I mean, it doesn't seem like a good idea. First, but I mean, there is historical precedence for nuclear powers going to war and not blowing each other up. India and China is the biggest, the most ready example that springs to mind. But what both war games, both on the Chinese side and the U.S. side, basically speaks to a limited conflict over the Strait of Taiwan. And that could happen, and no nukes could get shot because it's just about that. And it's so stupid. Like, I just want to ruminate on Trumpian policy, right, real quick about
Please
Taiwan.
do.
So, they're about to, as of like last month, they're talking about approving a new arms deal to Taiwan to further militarize it. And before I go into like the U.S. war hawk anti-China hawk think tank war games that were conducted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, who just did this massive exercise about what a conflict over Taiwan would look like. I want to talk about his tariff policies, okay? So, like, and how confused the entire thing is. So, we're approving a new weapons package to Taiwan to make them stronger against China while placing massive tariffs on them. Are you insane? Like, that's where most of our like high performance electronics and chips come from. So okay, we're
Including
gonna
military.
we're gonna hurt their economy, but also give them more weapons because apparently warfare and economics are separate. The entire thing's insane. But I just want to talk about like people thought that Trump was an anti-war candidate, and he is to a certain respect. I think he's certainly more of an anti-war candidate than someone like Biden. But he's not anti-war. All presidents, all U.S. presidents are
Are war criminals.
definitively war criminals. The closest we had, the closest we had was Jimmy Carter, and he was still funding dirty wars
Yeah.
and literal genocides. So he's not an anti-war candidate. The U.S. has had this idea about wrapping up the global war on terror, um, isolating Russia, and doing a geostrategic shift to deal with China, to isolate China with Taiwan, with military presence in Taiwan, Japan, Okinawa, South Korea, all these things, all these U.S. foreign policy doesn't change. So, when China, during the revolution, and they established China as a communist power, that's when the U.S. war machine started shifting towards trying to isolate them from the rest of the Pacific and the Pacific Islands and everything. So these plans have been put in motion for a long time. And presidents don't really change them. And the interesting thing that I want people to understand about U.S. foreign policy, it doesn't really change. It's like all these ideas, all these hawkish ideas are literally institutionally ingrained in every aspect of the war machine, the bureaucracy, whatever you want to call it. The conservatives call it the deep state.
Mm.
Um, where you have these officials that have been in the CIA, these policymakers in the CIA since the Bay of Pigs. I personally don't really believe in the deep state. I think it's just called like capitalism, but that's what dominates everything from our imperial power. But yeah, so these policies haven't changed. Trump's not going to change it. People see China as the biggest threat. You have China hawks like Tom Cotton, really, who hasn't done shit for Arkansas, where he's a senator, but he is obsessed with China. He said, I was funded by the Chinese Communist Party, and he's going for Secretary of Defense. Like, all of these ideas are institutionally baked into the U.S. war machine. Here's the problem. It's like Iran. We can't invade Iran. We can't attack Iran. So going back to this study by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, they did this massive war game. Had like 40 ex-general officers, like generals, admirals, colonels, run a number of scenarios. And no matter how the scenario turned out, it basically ends in a stalemate. So because the U.S. industrial base, while the Chinese Navy cannot in any way at this point, and probably for the next couple decades, compete with the U.S. Navy. Like, yes, sure, the U.S. Navy has a massive readiness problem, but we have 11 carrier strike groups. Yeah. Okay? The problem is, even if we wanted to be victorious against China, they have a massive land base, right? And we're like militarily deindustrialized. According to any war games studies that I've seen, we run out of munitions literally in about 3 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
Cool. Stalemate. So we have Marco Rubio, now that he's Secretary of State, talking about the Porcupine strategy, which is fortify Taiwan so much that the Chinese won't attack, because you try to grab a porcupine, it just like hurts too much that it's not worth it. So it's going to be a stalemate for the foreseeable future, and for the next few years, I believe. And yeah, it's kind of like Iran, where the Brookings Institute put out a 2009 study called "Which Path to Persia." If your audience is interested in that, it came out in 2009, and if you read it, it's the same policy that we have now, because U.S. foreign policy does not change. So stalemate with Iran. I don't think the U.S. is going to bomb Iranian hard sites, and we'll see it when this episode comes out if I'm wrong or not. But again, they're going to tolerate the intolerable and just try to do the porcupine strategy with Taiwan. We'll run out of munitions. A lot of people will die for what? And so it's going to be business as usual. That's my take on Taiwan.
Thank you for watching. To gain access to the full episode, receive 2 exclusive episodes a month, get every episode 1 week early, and help us stay as independent as possible, support us on Patreon through the link below.